The year's coming to an end, and right around the corner, as you know, is New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, and all of those great, well intentioned New Year's resolutions. But how often does that really work? I know for me, my New Year's resolutions really don't ever really work. And it's because we don't really approach it in a systematic, well thought through way. And what we want to talk about today is we want to talk about how to take goals, not your New Year's resolutions, but your goals, how you can take your goals and not only make them a little bit more attainable, but increase the amount of times you get those goals done. We want to give you a system and a step-by-step way of how you can go from, hey, I want to do this, to, hey, I'm doing it and I'm actually living it out and it's actually a part of what I'm doing. It's part of my life and it's a part of the change that I'm wanting to see, whether it's in your own personal life or whether it's in your ministry, in your church. Either way, we're going to show you how to take well intentions and turn them into accomplished goals. So let's get started. Awesome. So the big question is this: how do pastors like us who remain focused on the mission of Jesus and serving our communities without being distracted by everything in the world around us, how do we increase our effectiveness while living a lifestyle that doesn't compromise our health, our families, or our personal relationships with Jesus? That's the question this podcast is going to answer. I'm Dr. Brandon Party Cooper, and welcome to the Ministry Hackers Podcast. Welcome to this episode of the Ministry Hackers Podcast. I hope you're doing wonderful wherever you are and whatever it is that you are doing. Our goal here at Ministry Hackers is always to help you as a pastor and ministry leader live out your dream life, whatever that looks like, whatever God has called you to do, whether it's pastoring a growing church, growing ministry, or whether it's creating a new life. Oh, dang it. Let me think that through. Our goal here at Ministry Hackers is to help you live that fulfilling, that dream life in ministry that you've always dreamed of. Pastoring a growing church, pastoring a growing ministry, while at the same time spending time with your family, your friends, doing all the things that you love to do. And so that's why we're here. I'm glad that you're here, a part of us. And I love to introduce my friend, the pastor from the north, Pastor Matt Wasbinski. Welcome, Matt, to the episode.
That I'm the pastor from the north and I'm like wearing my Columbia and a hoodie. Like I am playing the part today.
Yeah. Are you guys getting snow?
It's snowing as we speak. So
Nice.
not,
I'm so
yeah.
jealous.
D- I don't understand why, man. It's cold and I'm okay with snow once we hit December. Like some people are like very Scroogey when it comes to like when you decorate for Christmas. I'm
Right.
Scroogey when it comes to snow. Like I want to play like pickup football on Thanksgiving. And then after that, snow
Yeah.
is fine, but
Oh, I mean,
no
just playing in the
snow.
snow. It's even better in the snow.
Yeah, I did that when I was younger, but now I'm just like guy on the sidelines, hands in my pocket saying, this is dumb. Why are we doing this?
Football in the snow is actually better because you get all bundled up, so it doesn't hurt as much.
That makes sense. It hurts at this stage of my life. It hurts regardless of bundling. So
Right. Yeah, that's true. That is true. Well, okay. So what we're here to talk about today is we're here to talk about how to create goals that are not just, hey, I want to do this and maybe someday I'll get there, but actually goals that we live out, that we see accomplishment, and we get to the other side of, and we get to enjoy the fruits of those goals. And what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about a system called the Smarter Goals System. And Matt's familiar with it. They use it there at their church. I've used it for years. Myself, as well as in ministries that I'm a part of, as well as pastors and individuals that I worked with over the years. We've used Smarter Goals simply because it's easy to use, it's very clear on how you approach, and it increases the accomplishment of all of your goals as you go through them. So we're going to walk through that step. It's very easy, very simple, and we're going to start with making sure your goals are specific goals. We all say things, as we're coming again on the New Year's, we all have New Year's resolutions. I want to lose weight, or, I want to stop whatever, drinking soda, or whatever that is. And it all sounds good and it's all well intentioned, but how specific is that? I want to lose weight is really not very specific. And so are we creating goals that are specific, saying, I want to lose X amount of pounds. I want to lose 20 pounds. I want to lose 10 pounds. I want to whatever the case is, making sure that it's specific, making sure that it's something that we can visualize and that we can make sure that it's got some tangibility to it rather than I just want to lose some weight. So, Matt, for you guys, as you go through your goals and as you look at smarter goals, how exactly do you approach the process of making them specific and creating goals that are attainable?
Us, when we say specific, we actually have 3 terms in a year, and we set 4 goals per term, and we go over it with our direct report. And our goals actually are directly tied with raises and performance reviews at the end of the year. So you want to be accomplishing these goals. And so when you sit down, they will ask you kind of, okay, how do we know that you accomplished this goal?
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, the specific might be, instead of read 3 leadership books, what books are you going to read?
Right.
And it actually is nice because when we sit down, we kind of submit our goals, and then it gives our direct reports a chance to feedback and say, hey, maybe zone this in a little bit more on what exactly you mean by that. Whether, instead of I'm going to read 3 books, I'm going to read this book, and this book.
Mm-hmm.
So then you can actually check that off instead of just kind of vaguely, like you said, throwing out like, oh, I want to generally improve in this area, but like, what specifically are you going to do to accomplish that?
Right. That's good. Yeah, you're removing the subjectivity from it, and yeah, I can imagine if your performance reviews and rewards and all of that is based on your goals, it has to be pretty specific. And so, it's hard to hand out raises and things like that if it's very general and subjective. And even in a ministry standpoint, all of us as pastors and ministry leaders, we say, I want my church to grow, or I want my ministry to grow, or I want more volunteers. But how do we know that we actually get is one more volunteer, one more attendee, one more tither? Is that really the goal that we're going after? Or is it something more specific than that? And so, even for you, Matt, in your areas of ministry, do you set specific goals within your area? Like as far as, how many people, how many volunteers you have on each team, something like that?
We actually month to month track our volunteers. So one will have how many people do you have, how many leaders do you have for that team, and then what's your total number. And then at the end of the month, we actually track that. So then throughout the year, we can see if we're going up, if we're going down. You can see trends like, okay, obviously, like summer, it goes down, and then maybe in the fall, it comes up.
Right.
And so, and then you actually have your goal amount. So how many, like, the example that we do is like, if you could, at what point do you have to start making up stuff for people to do?
Right.
So like, if you have a door greeter, okay, you can have 2 door greeters, you have 2 services, and you want someone to serve every other week. So that means that you need at least 8 people to be on a serving rotation. So then you can
Mm-hmm.
have 2 for first, 2 for second, and then next week 2 for first, 2 for second.
Right.
So once you have 9, now it's like, okay, we either need to go to a 3 week rotation, or we have to maybe have 2 door greeters and then someone greeting them at the auditorium entrance.
Mm-hmm.
So we also have those goals as well of, okay, where are you kind of capped off, or where maybe you are even encouraging someone to maybe check out another serve opportunity.
Right.
But yeah, what are your goals where it's like, hey, if 1,000 people showed up and said I wanted to serve, where's your goal for, like, this would be like, where if we could have this many people helping.
Right. Got it. Okay. Yeah. And that makes sense. And that, again, it helps you not just have goals, but it helps you have a clear understanding of like what action steps are based on if I reach this goal, then what's next? How do we move forward and how do we manage the things that we're doing and manage our ministries and, all that stuff. So, yeah, I like that. Okay. So that's specific. Okay. The next, the next step in creating these smarter goals is making them measurable. So again, let's go back to I want to lose weight. Well, that's great. But let's be specific about that. I want to lose weight. I want to lose 10 pounds. I want to lose 20 pounds. I want to lose 50 pounds, whatever it is. There's a measurable piece to that. You can look and say, okay, you're here today. And at the end of your goal, you're here and we can measure that, whether it's weight or whether it's numbers or whether it's people or whether it's whatever. It has to have some measurable element to it. So you can see if we were to put it on a graph chart, chart, we could see it rising or falling or whichever direction we needed to go, but we could visualize the data. We could see a measurable point and we could track it over time. So your goal not only has to be specific, but it has to be measurable, something that you can actually track. And so, Matt, for you guys, how do you determine the measurable part? Are you just grabbing numbers out of the air? Are you basing it on past trends? Like, how are you figuring out your measurables?
Is once we start measuring stuff, it makes it so much easier to continue measuring it. One of the reasons that we measure our volunteers every month is so then we kind of know where our baseline is. I think that a lot of churches, they don't want to be like, oh, well, we don't really care about the numbers. It's not about the numbers, but the numbers are truly important,
Yeah.
because you can think that, oh, wow, I'm seeing a lot of new faces. And so that must mean that we're growing. But then if you look at your attendance, you might actually be dropping because people are leaving quicker than they're coming. And so, one thing that really helps with measurable goals that we've found is consistently measuring, even if it's not a goal currently. So then you can even use that to evaluate. Maybe you're looking at all your different teams and you're realizing, wow, this one for the past 6 months has been completely stagnant.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that we noticed last year, so in 2021, was that we were very stagnant on baptisms.
Mm.
We had a lot of people joining groups and teams and things like that. But in comparison to other years, for some reason, whether it was COVID or just what, or just wasn't an emphasis as much, we were very low on baptisms in
Yeah.
comparison to our other years. And so, even though that wasn't a goal for 2021, we continued to measure how many baptisms are we having every month. So then going into 2022, we said, okay, we need to start having more conversations about baptism
Yeah.
with people on our teams and our small groups, because we continued to measure. And then that also helped us. So then later on, in midway through 2022, we could look back and say, hey, in 2021, we had X amount of baptisms, and now we have Y in 2022. We set that goal of we would like to have an increase of X amount or percentage or whatever, and then we were able to actually see that. So a big part for measurable too is, even outside of your goals, be constantly measuring. So then you have something to
Right.
weigh it against, because you might say, I have the measurable goal of adding 6 team members, but compared to what you currently have, is that a lot? Is that a
Right.
little? And
Right.
so if you don't know kind of where you're currently at, that's going to make it harder for you to set a measurable goal
Mm-hmm.
to, you know, place that improvement.
Yeah, and that's a good point to make. We should be collecting data all the time. And I know that sometimes the kickback on data is that, well, we can't let data tell us exactly what we're doing all the time, and we have to let the Holy Spirit move, and I get all of that. 100% get it all. But like you're saying, when there's point of action, when there's decisions to be made, if we don't have past data to help us make those decisions, then we're really guessing and shooting in the dark. And then, we come to a point like this where we're creating goals and we're creating the smarter goals and we have to have it measurable. And like you said, if we don't have data from the past and we're just picking a number, well, then we may be messing with our success rate on our goals, which could be very encouraging or very discouraging because we don't have any data to back it up with. And so collecting the data, whether it's for the goals or not, making sure that you have something to build your measurable piece of your goal off of to make it more accurate, to make it something that the congregation or your church or even you, your staff, whatever, can get behind and have a clearer understanding of what you're dealing with. So making it measurable, and that kind of leads into making it attainable. That's the A. Smarter. The A part is making it attainable. And what attainable means is this something that you can actually attain? So if you're a church, let's say you're a church of 200 people and you want to have a youth group of 150, well, is that really attainable with where you are right now? Maybe you could just start bussing kids in from all over the place. But probably, looking at a youth group of 150 in a church of 200, that's probably not a very attainable goal based on you probably don't have enough volunteers, you don't have enough resources, you don't have enough space, whatever. It's just not really an attainable goal. And so you want to make it something that is attainable with the resources, with the space, with what you are already working with, to make sure that it's a goal that is worth pursuing. If it's not attainable, number one, it's not worth pursuing. And number two, your team and yourself, you'll just get discouraged along the way and you'll abandon the goal eventually because it really wasn't in, in within your reach to get there. And so making sure it's within your reach, something that's actually attainable for you.
Because one of the things that I had to learn early on was make sure that you're setting attainable goals in the way that you can control the outcome on some level.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a paradigm shift for me. So what used to be the goal of I'm going to have 10 new volunteers join my team in the next term. Well, yeah, I can hustle and I can go. At the end of the day, you that's someone else's decision.
Mm-hmm.
You can walk them through the steps, you can do all the things, and at the end of the day, someone can say, "Hey, I'm just not ready," or you might not have 10 new people come through your door that are qualified or want to be, on a team. And so what really messed me up was the fact is I was almost setting myself up like, hey, I'm putting this in someone else's hands to be accomplished versus it's something I can do.
Right.
So switching the terminology to make it more attainable from I'm going to have 10 new volunteers join my team to I'm going to have 30 conversations with people about joining a team.
Right.
So then what that does is hopefully out of the 30, maybe 10 of those people do, but having those 30 conversations is 100% on me.
Mm-hmm.
And so that makes it more attainable on my part, where you're not relying on someone else accomplishing their goal because they may or may not do that
Right.
for your goal to be accomplished. So when I look at attainable, that's a big thing I always like to focus on is it something that outside of circumstance, outside of all that sort of stuff that I can accomplish that
Mm-hmm.
will still lead to the end goal that maybe I was going to write down, having 10 more volunteers. Um, or is it something where I'm saying, okay, I'm going to do everything I can, and hopefully someone else will pick up the slack and then make this goal accomplished?
Right. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and that leads us into the next step, which is realistic. And I think that attainable and realistic can get really confusing because attainable is it within reach? Realistic is it within the realm of possibility? Um, and I think this can become confusing because I think realistic is a little bit of a it's a combination between is it measurable and is it attainable? Is it realistic? So, for instance, I want to lose, I want to lose 100 pounds in the next month. Okay, all right, like that would be great for some of us. We would love to do that, but it's measurable and it is possible for me to lose 100 pounds. But is it realistic that I'm going to lose 100 pounds in a month? Probably not. Remain healthy doing that. And so the question that you have to ask is when you're making these smarter goals is okay, it's measurable, okay, it's attainable, but are those two things, is it a realistic goal for me to do? Is it a realistic goal for my team, my staff, my congregation? Is it realistic that we'll be able to reach that? Again, even going back to the youth group example, okay, so maybe we don't go 150 uh, size youth group in a 200-person church. But let's say we have a youth group of 30 today, and we want to go to a youth group of 100 by the end of the year. Let's say 6 months out. In the next 6 months, we want to go from 30 to 100. But your youth group, your youth building, it can hold 100 people, but you don't have volunteers to do that. It's not really realistic because when you look around your town, there's not all that many youth group or youth students that could come. It's just not a realistic goal to have, even though it's measurable. You have a measurement to it, and even though it's attainable, you have the space for it, and maybe you have volunteers, maybe you don't. But the reality is there are not even 100 or I guess 70 more students out there. If all of them came, they're not there. And so yes, it's measurable. Yes, it's attainable. But do those two things make a realistic goal that you can chase after? So I guess, Matt, for you guys, how do you differentiate between attainable and realistic? Is there a differentiation for you guys on how you approach those
Yeah,
two?
we do. Yeah. So what we do is kind of like I said with attainable is realistic is like, okay, we really struggle with this, especially in the church world, because we want to have that one foot in faith and say like,
Right.
hey, God can do whatever God's going to do, which is very true. God can blow the doors off of your goal,
Hmm.
but one of the things, and I think this really helps with it being tied into like even financial incentives on our end, is you want to make it, you have to find that really sweet balance of, I'm going to read, the, you know, I'm going to read one psalm sometime during the next term. Okay, that's obviously like it's measurable, it's specific, you can do it, but like it's not a really good goal.
Right.
Versus realistic is like, okay, I'm gonna memorize the entire Bible in the next month. Like, okay, could you possibly do that? Yes, but like, are you paying attention to the rest of your ministry? Are you ignoring your family? That sort of thing. So I think that realistic puts, real life in there
Hmm.
and kind of looks at, okay, is this going to be healthy for you to do? I'm
Right.
not saying that you can't do it, but you still have kids, especially when we're talking about, living your dream life. You might be looking at, okay, am I going to have to sacrifice,
Right.
my personal stuff? Is this going to be a big financial thing? Is this
Hmm.
going to, will I have to like, sell the farm
Right.
to make this work? Could
Right.
you? Yeah, you could. But then if we're being realistic, is it going to set you up for future success and, all those sort of things? So attainable is it physically possible to do? Yes. Realistic is, okay, if you physically do it, is it going to kill you? Like, is it going to like ruin like your personal life, your
Right.
spiritual life? Is it going to maybe burn out your volunteers and your staff if you try to execute this? So realistic kind of takes the attainable, like, is it possible? Yes. But is it realistically what we should be doing?
Right.
Then that's kind of where realistic kind of brings it, that big dream idea, and brings it back down to earth and says, okay, on the Monday through Sunday,
Hmm.
is this something that is going to be healthy and good and moving us forward?
Right. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so that's our realistic. Okay, then we move into timely. And this is the time frame that you're going to do it in. So we have a specific goal. I want to lose weight. It's measurable. I want to lose 50 pounds. That's attainable. It's realistic. It's within the realm of possibility. It's something I can reach for. But what's the window of time? Now, if we say it's within the next 30, I'm going to lose 50 pounds in the next 30 days, it's probably not realistic or attainable. But I want to lose 50 pounds in the next year. Well, that's pretty realistic. That's pretty attainable. It's measurable. It's specific. And the timely piece. So the time frame that it's given is what makes it all of those things. And so what's the time frame? And the other thing is when we make a time frame on it, when we make it timely, it motivates us to get the goal done. It motivates us that all of us, I mean, for many of us, when we were in school, we didn't study 3 months before the test. We studied the night before because that deadline, that time frame that we were given, it's what motivates us. And so the idea here is you put a time frame on your goals, whether it's a month, whether it's a quarter, whether it's a semester, whether it's a year, whatever it is, but put a deadline, making sure that I have to get this done by this time frame, making it timely, and pushing yourself towards the accomplishment of that goal. Because if you don't create a time frame, you will not accomplish most of your goals because there's no urgency. There's no internal push to get there and get it done. And so, making sure that you're putting a deadline on it, making sure you have a time frame, and that will push you to get that goal done. So again, for you guys, Matt, how do you come up with your deadlines and your time frame for your goals?
Well, one of the things is when we are looking at goals, one, they are set automatically in a 4 month span
Right.
because we do 3 terms. So everything has to be accomplished in those. So even if you have a bigger goal, it might be okay, well, in the next
Oh yeah.
4 months,
Mm-hmm.
what's something that you can do? And then and since we're continually redoing these goals, it's like, okay, what's phase one basically of this larger goal? So it might be, man, I want all my teams thoroughly trained in like, we call them experts. So like helping people take their next step, like everyone should know that. Okay, so maybe you can't do that if you have 8 teams realistically. And so maybe you say, okay, well, this term I'm going to meet with my prayer team and my door greeters. And then the next term you can say, okay, I'm going to meet with my coffee team and my next step table team. So then you can kind of break it up, because then you're not trying to shove, you know, 18 trainings in the next 4 months or something.
Right.
Another really interesting thing about Timely, and this is a real life example that we had, was I wanted to do an audit on how we're doing for a first time attender. So from when they pull into the parking lot to when they leave, like, is our signage good? Like, how's our coffee area? How are our door greeters, our parking, all that sort of stuff. And so one of the goals that I had written down for the like summer term, so basically from like, April till, August,
Mm-hmm.
was I wanted to have 4 people basically secret shop us. So
Oh
have
yeah.
my friends who maybe are pastors from the area who just have a Sunday off, just come, try to check in their kids, get some coffee, like, do they know where to park, all that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that my campus pastor said was, this is a really good goal. I like the fact that you're trying to like go from good to great and, hey, where can we improve, get some outside eyes. He said, but in the summertime, our volunteers are way down.
Right.
And so what's going to happen is they're going to come, and instead of having 2 door greeters, you might just have one.
Yeah.
You might not have an auditorium host because, we're trying to pare back. You might have one person running coffee instead of 2. Just all these sort of things, because,
Right.
you're a little bit more bare bones in the summer. So for me, I was thinking, oh, well, people in the summer, they're naturally on vacation. So it would be easier for me to get people to come and visit us.
Right.
But he had the insight to say, is this a good goal to put on your plate right now?
Right.
Because the feedback that you're going to get is not going to be the same feedback as when
Mm-hmm.
we launch in the fall.
Right.
So he said, this is a good goal, but maybe let's push it towards the next term.
Mm-hmm.
So then you can do that. And then it's timely, because now, you don't want to do like, hey, you want to set a goal for a bunch of new team members in the summertime when your
Right.
regular team members are barely there. But maybe in the fall, that's a really good timely goal, because people are coming back, people are checking you out, all that sort of stuff. So timely, another like side to that is also, is it a good time to do this goal right now?
Right.
Or is there a
Exactly.
better time in the calendar to maybe try to accomplish this goal that fits a little bit better with the rhythms of everybody who's attending your church?
Right. Yeah. No, that's good, because that's true, because we run on cycles. And so, trying to do a goal in one cycle is probably, is optimal in another cycle. It's better to wait until till that cycle runs its course. And so, yeah, that's a good, I had never thought about that, but that's good. Making sure you're doing it at the right time. Not only creating a deadline, not only creating boundaries, but also making sure you're doing it at the optimal moment. And that's even when we go back to the New Year's resolution idea. I know that New Year's resolutions, it's in some way, it's like top of mind because we just went through the holidays. I just gained a bunch of weight because I ate all the candy and cookies and everything else. And so the obvious time to do it is in January to lose all that weight. But the reality is it's winter. And, for those of us who are from the North and, for you who live in the North, like it's not a great time to get out and go running. It's not a great time to, try and lose a bunch of weight because all we want to do is hunker down in the cold, in the warmth of the house and watch movies and gain more weight is usually how it works out. And so, yeah, finding the right time, finding a time that it works better to accomplish that goal. And again, the whole point of every one of these steps is to increase the probability of attaining that goal, of accomplishing that goal. And so I like that. Okay, so that's timely. The E is energizing. And I think this is a big one. It's not complex. It's not difficult. The other ones are a little bit more, I feel like they're a little bit more structured. This one goes to the heart of who we are. Because in our roles as pastors, ministry leaders, there's going to be times where we have to set goals about things that aren't super exciting for us. But more often than not, we have to find a way to make our goals energizing, which means that they have to be something we want to do, something that we're passionate about, something that we really want to see accomplished. And that's even why the whole, like, I want to see my church grow. Like, it sounds good. And yes, we always want things like that. But is that really an energizing goal? Is that really something that's going to get us up in the morning and get us moving out the door? Is it something that's going to help us make the sacrifices necessary to accomplish that goal? Because probably not. And so ask yourself the question, even if it ticks all the boxes so far, even if it's specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely, is this a goal that energizes me, that gets me moving, that helps me dive in and say, okay, I'm going to do what I have to do today to get to my goal? Because if it's not, there's a good chance you're not going to accomplish the goal. And so, Matt, for you guys, do you use the energizing piece of this?
When we're looking at if a goal is energizing, we're kind of looking at maybe it's even for your team, for our campus, like what kind of forward momentum is this going to cause?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times, we share our goals even with our team and say, hey, it's been, a goal for me to do this. And so I really want to kind of put that positive momentum behind it. And like you said, because if we don't have that positive momentum behind it, the odds that we're going to do it drop.
Right.
Like it's just less likely that we're going to do it if we're not excited to do it. And
Right.
like you said, it's not that everything is going to be super exciting, but it's one of those you almost have to look even a little bit further on and say, okay, what is this going to like free me up to do? What is this
Right.
going to improve or streamline? So then, even though the task itself might not be like, yay, I get to, you
Right.
know, make an Excel spreadsheet, hooray! Like it's not, the act itself might not be super exciting,
Right.
but you know that it's going to cause that forward momentum, and that in itself is exciting. Because
Right.
if you're just sort of like, yeah, it's just sort of a task I need to accomplish,
Right.
then the odds of you just kind of letting it drop off halfway through your term or halfway through the month is pretty high.
Right. And the final step in creating these smarter goals is rewarding. Now, this helps if you have a goal that isn't energizing. So you have a goal, you have to do it. It's something that's necessary for your church or ministry to move forward, whatever. So maybe the goal itself is not energizing, but it has to be done. Well, rewarding yourself is a way to create those not so fun goals and make them still move you forward. And what that means is you reward yourself. So when you accomplish this goal, whatever it is, what are you going to do? Now, maybe it could be as simple as I'm going to give myself some ice cream. Or maybe it's something bigger, something that's, tied to the goal or, somehow oriented with what you're doing with the goal. But how are you rewarding yourself? And I think this goes back to as pastors and ministry leaders, we accomplish a lot in a given year and we reward ourselves very little. We go, 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 we get things done and we move from one thing to the next and we never pause long enough to really say, man, I did this. Like I accomplished this. And I think this is what contributes to the frustration of pastors and ministry leaders. I think it's what contributes to this feeling like I'm just going, 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 and there's never any relief. It's because we don't take time to reward ourselves. We do it sometimes, hopefully we're good at doing that for our staff members and our volunteers, giving them a pat on the back or even rewarding them with something tangible because of something they've done or something they've accomplished, but we don't do it enough for ourselves. And so when we're creating goals, we need to make sure that we're building in a piece that says, hey, good job, like you did this. Because we need this just as much as our staff does, just as much as our volunteers do. We need that. We need that pat on the back, even if it's patting ourselves on the back and saying, hey, you set a goal and you worked hard and you sacrificed and you accomplished that goal. Here's a little reward for that. There's nothing wrong with rewarding yourself. And I think it's something that we absolutely need for the longevity of our own selves in ministry. So, Matt, how do you reward yourself when you're accomplishing goals?
Yeah, this one is interesting because uh, what pops in my brain is always, I love sports. And so when you see someone, maybe they won the division title or the conference championship, obviously their end goal is like the championship at the end of the year. But you still see them maybe celebrate in the locker room,
Yep.
champagne and the goggles and all that sort of stuff because it's still a big accomplishment. You're not guaranteed that you're going to make it as far as you did.
Right.
And, you always hear that coach speak of, we're going to celebrate this one for tonight, but then
Right.
tomorrow it's back to work and, we're getting ready for whoever.
Yep.
And, every coach says that. But I think that there's a good, you know, that. I was watching last week with the Colts. They call it Victory Monday. That if you win on Sunday, you don't have practice on
Yeah.
Monday.
Hmm.
And because they want you to at least take 24 hours to say, hey, we did it. We
Yeah.
went out, we game planned, we worked hard, we put it all on the line. And so we get a day to like maybe hang out with family or just relax or recover a little bit more
Right.
because you did what you went out to accomplish.
Hmm.
And so the same thing where I think so often like we want to just get, like you said, right into the next thing. But I think that what that does is it drains us so fast
Yeah.
because we never get the satisfaction of, like you said, even just a little pat on the back of, I did it.
Yeah.
I maybe sacrificed some time, some personal stuff. I could have just put this off. It's a goal that maybe I've really been striving towards for a while,
Right.
but I did it. And I think that it's also good to have this on the front end of your
Hmm.
goal, not so then because you don't want to just be like, okay, you know, like I said, we break ourselves into terms. We get to the end of the term and then I go home and then it's like, hey, I should probably do something. But
Right.
what's going to get you is that at the beginning, if you say, like for us, like I brought it in, like it's the financial side.
Hmm.
Like I know that if I accomplish this goal, the number that we have is 75%. So if I accomplish 75% of my term goals throughout the calendar year, then that puts me in a position where I can get like a raise, about like that sort of a
Right.
situation financially. And so when we hit those things that maybe that, like you said, maybe it's not as energizing. Maybe it all of a sudden our attainable goal seems a little bit less attainable 2 months in.
Right.
That will give you that extra little carrot at the end saying, no, like if I can do this,
Yeah.
like
I can do it.
there's something at the end of this rainbow that will just gives you that extra little bump. And
Hmm.
so I think it's good that we take that time to celebrate, to plan ahead, and just kind of enjoy it. Like that coach says, we're going to enjoy this one for today, and then tomorrow we're going to get back to work. And
Right.
I think that's a healthy balance to have.
Yeah. Well, and I think it also helps, again, as pastors and administrators, it's easy for us to go, 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 go. And then we look back and we feel like, oh, I just haven't done anything. Like I haven't accomplished anything. I don't feel like I'm moving anything forward. And especially because, we look at attendance growth and we look at, our budgets and we look at those things. And sometimes those don't always reflect the things that we're doing. They don't reflect, the accomplishments that we have aren't always, those are both what we call those is we call them laggard data points, which means that, for instance, you could have tons of people start attending your church, but it's not going to change your financial bottom line for 6, 8 months, maybe a year out. And so sometimes, and even attendance is the same way. Like you're doing all these events and you're connecting with people and all of those things, but sometimes it takes months for people to make a decision to actually attend your church, and even several more months to say, this is going to be my home church. And so sometimes you have to look at other measurables and really get a sense of what you're doing. And if you're not taking the time to reward yourself and kind of stopping and saying, "Oh my goodness, like we did that, or I did that, I accomplished that, we accomplished that," then it's easy to just go, go, go. You're years down the road and you're like, I don't know what I've done. Like, I don't feel like I've accomplished anything. But it's because you haven't paused long enough to just say, good job. Like, good job, team. Good job, me. Good job, us. Whatever. We did this. Now, like you said, now let's get back to it and let's do some more. Um, and I think, again, that plays into this mentality that we have of like, we're just not doing a good job. As a pastor, I'm just not doing a good job. And it's because we're not taking time to reward ourselves. And there's nothing wrong with rewarding yourself. Some people feel bad about it. Some people feel like they're being selfish. Please don't. You're not being either of those. What you're doing is you're recognizing an accomplishment. And if nobody else is around you who can recognize that or will recognize it, it's important for you to take the time, reward yourself for doing it, and kind of bolster your own self, bolster your confidence, bolster your courage, because you're recognizing, hey, I sacrificed, I worked hard, and I accomplished something, and I'm gonna reward myself for what I've done. So, and then the next day you get back to it. So, any thoughts, Matt? Finalizing.
Yeah, yeah. When I think of rewards, there's two things that pop in my brain. One is we also have to remember that most of us are working with volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that celebrating those wins is also super important for them because
Yes.
there's always going to be another initiative that's around the corner that you're going to have to rally them for. And
Yes.
so if you do this big back to school fall thing, but then you never celebrate like all the families that came
Yeah.
or all
Yeah.
the like, this big thing that happened, or if you're doing maybe a capital campaign for this new wing, and then you raise the money, you build the thing, but then the next thing is on the plate, and that
Yeah.
sort of thing. Eventually, your volunteers are going to get to a point where they're like you said, I feel like we're just doing stuff, but we like there's something about celebrating that we did it. And that will kind of keep that momentum rolling. And like you said, it doesn't even have to be a big thing. One that pops in my
Mhm.
brain is I have a pastor friend who every time he finishes a sermon series will get it printed on just like a little bit larger than a postcard kind of a thing, like a canvas, and he puts it on his wall.
Mm.
And now he has from the past 10 years of being a lead pastor, literally has like a whole wall of like every sermon series graphic that he's done. And every time, like it costs him like $5. He orders it online, he gets it printed and puts it up. And now he just has like a whole like mosaic of just everything. So we can look back and remember. He's like, because a lot of times, even little things like that, like we create this sermon, we put work into it, and then we never touch it again.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's just like this thing of like, I can look back and I can remember the awesome altar times maybe that happened, or the incredible like that was that person's first week and now they're serving and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
And so like I said, it doesn't have to be like, okay, you go to Cancun every time that you complete a goal.
Right.
Like it can just be something small that
Yeah.
just reminds you like, hey, I did it, I accomplished it, things happened, lives were changed. And I think that's really important to do.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. Well, that's the smarter goal system. And again, the idea here is we need goals. We need to set goals to make sure that we're moving forward, that we're not just creating abstract ideas that we're kind of haphazardly chasing after. Smarter goals, we're setting goals, specific ones, measurable ones, ones we can actually uh, accomplish and attain. We chase after those so that we make sure that we're moving forward, whether it's in our personal lives, whether it's our ministries and our church, wherever it is. Take goals, whatever the goal is for you, whatever that aspiration inside of you is, run it through the smarter goal system, answer all the questions, put all the pieces down so that you know on the front end what it looks like. And I guarantee you, you're going to start seeing more of your goals accomplished. Your confidence is going to go up. You're going to start accomplishing more in your ministry, in your personal life, and you're just going to see how valuable of a tool the smarter goal system really is. So use it, put your goals through it, and start enjoying that dream life that you've always imagined. So thank you again, as always, Matt. Thanks for joining me here from the cold, snowy north of Michigan. And thank you so much for being here in this episode with us. Look forward to you in the next episode. Have a wonderful day, wherever you are, and whatever it is you are doing.